who is Forthrev? For those of you that don't know, we exist to unlock human potential through reimagined education. We combine industry input into our curriculum design. So we go to industry first and ask what it is and seek answers to what it is that they need in the skills for today with a lens for skills of the future. And then couple that with the very best of academic underpinnings, in this case, obviously with the London School of Economics and Political Science, meaning that our career accelerators, these programs, are proven to be delivering outstanding career outcomes in the digital economy. That's what it's all about. It's practical. There's no exams, and I'll get to that in a moment. And instead, you're empowered to really look at ways in which to apply the learnings to a business context all throughout the program. So this is completely online, the program. It is made up of 3 courses and 1 live industry-facing project to round it off. Course 1 is data analytics for business. In that, you'll touch on SQL and Excel in particular. Course 2 is, and they run for 6 weeks with a week's reflection in between. Then you'll commence course 2, which is data analytics with Python, using Python. A week off as well then before advanced analytics for organisational impact. In that program, or that course, sorry, you will dive more deeply into Python and R as well as a language. And lastly, that your learning outcomes then enable your participation in a live industry-facing project at the end. To frame that quickly for you, because it's a very unique offering, part of the program, where you, along with 4 or 5 other high caliber fellow learners, will meet with one of our industry partners. They'll present to you a scenario or a challenge in which they currently experience, and usually a very obviously big data set in which to work with. And as a team, you'll work through a 6-week project to come up with innovative and tangible solutions to those scenarios, presenting your recommendations and findings back to the client in a consultancy style presentation at the end. There's a great deal of value in the program, in the project, in that it is a practical way for you to apply your new skills in many cases. It is a brilliant way to more deeply network with your fellow learners and industry leaders who are often looking to employ talent from the Career Accelerator. And lastly, it is a really inspiring and powerful demonstration of your value in an interview, be it your first role, be it your career changing into a data-focused role, or be that you're advancing your existing career in a data role. It's a much, much more powerful demonstration of your value than in an interview, than reciting an exam result can ever be. For example, picture yourself in an interview, and when they ask about the program and what you did at the London School of Economics, instead of reciting an exam result, which might be impressive, but I wouldn't say necessarily memorable, you actually have the opportunity of saying, well, we met with this amazing organisation. They gave us this challenge. We come up with these innovative solutions to that challenge, and this is the potential impact that our project will have on the industry. And we'll discuss the actual project that our guest did shortly as well. Along with that, you are treated in this program much, much more like a customer than a learner. So firstly, your first port of call in terms of support to get you through or to assist you get through the program successfully is your success manager. They are there and dedicated to assist anything that you need to be successful in the program, right from the commencement of onboarding, ensuring you're set up to succeed from the commencement of the course, all the way through to designing a regular or a study plan and being there on a regular basis to meet with you one-on-one over a video call, to be proactive in their support of you, much better than reactively saying, "Why didn't you hand your assignment in?" They'd say, "We haven't seen you for a little while online. Is everything okay? What can we do to get you on track?" That's proactive support, and it's very, very important, and it sees us with a really, really high completion and success rate. Coupling that though, and where we see so much additional value for learners in the program, is the executive style career coaching that is embedded within the program, where you have access to a career coach. They will dive deep into a goal setting process at the commencement of onboarding to understand what it is that you as an individual are striving to achieve. and your intended outcomes from the program. And then their monthly coaching of you in a one-on-one session will be guiding you towards you achieving that, your intended outcome. And the stories we get and we're about to hear are inspiring, and the coaching certainly is a massive opportunity for you to leverage the investment that you are making in yourself, but also, as the title mentions, accelerate your career through having those tools, not only for the next role, but for many roles into the future. The processes and the skills in job seeking are the same. There is an entry criteria I'll touch on very, very quickly in an application process. So applicants do need to be able to demonstrate foundational technical skills, either through relevant education, such as a quantitative field of study previously, or a unit of study, semester of study at university, or relevant and practical work experience that can demonstrate that. To apply, it is quite straightforward. We do ask you to upload, obviously, your information and your identity document, along with a transcript of your academic studies previously, or a reference from an employer should you not have studied at university before. That doesn't mean you can't get in. It certainly just means there's an alternate pathway. And then a personal statement. For people that haven't or don't meet either one of those two criteria, there is an aptitude test that you can take. And what I would suggest is that you book a time with your friendly enrolment advisor to be guided through that process. Your personal statement is just a one-page statement that outlines your intent, your commitment to the program, and a little bit about you. We want to know about yourself, because that information is not only valuable in us assessing your application as a whole, but also for your success manager and career coach, then to take that information and develop any empathy that you may require along the way, or get an understanding of your intended outcomes even before that first meeting with you as well. So the fees and payment plans available very quickly. The program is £8,395, and there are discounts available for people that elect to pay upfront, or and for LSE alumni, or we do offer interest and fee-free payment plans. They can range from 6 months all the way through to a much more extended option now that we're just happy to provide. And again, it is one that is over a longer period of time, either 12 or potentially 24 months, with no fees and no interest. Again, to access that, or to find out the eligibility requirements, even though there's no fees or interest, I recommend highly that you speak with your enrolment advisor as well. Before I get along to our guest, which is the main reason that we are here, I'll just double check the questions as they come through. A lot of them we will get to in this discussion. I really appreciate questions coming through, so please pop them in. In the meantime, however, and much more importantly than me talking, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our very, very special guest today in Hussein.
Hi, Daniel. Good afternoon.
Hussein, welcome, and thank you for your time. It's great to see you again. Congratulations, firstly. You've finished your Career Accelerator.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just mentioning to you, Daniel, the other day, it's flown by. I think 8 months ago, I sat as a secret participant, if you will, on this call, trying to understand exactly what I was hoping to get into. But it's been a really rewarding journey.
That's fantastic to hear. I can't wait to dive a little deeper into that. And good on you. I guess, similar to those in attendance today, you made a decision to inform yourself as best as you can around what's best for you. But before we get into your decision-making process and how you found that journey, just give us a little bit of background about what you were doing, I guess, prior to the Career Accelerator, and what's happened since you started.
Yeah, sure. So I, when I first applied, had spent about 10 years in the UK government civil service. So an economist by background. I think I'd reached a stage where I was quite interested to understand what my future career options looked like. I think for anyone, regardless of industry, the thing that seemed to be most interesting or the fastest growing was kind of data manipulation, data science. I don't think I really understood really kind of the difference between the two before I joined the program. but being able to tell a story with big data. And I think I wasn't entirely clear how to pursue that on my own, and I came across this course, and I just wanted to kind of explore how it could be of use to me. I think the other thing back then, after sort of 10 years of being in the civil service, was I fancied a career change. I was looking, I think, originally at Spotify, and this felt like a nice way to try and maybe pursue that ambition.
Brilliant. You started in October last year, and then in a very short space of time, obtained a new role. Tell us about that.
I did. So yeah, I started the course in October, and I started a new role as an economic consultant in February of this year. I think that was actually really fortuitous. So I think, as I mentioned already, my original aim was to work in a kind of data science heavy role. Spotify or Amazon or the tech companies are the most obvious ones to think of. But I found this role as an economic consultant, which seemed to build on the experience I had as a government economist. The fact that it started in February meant I already had about 4 months of experience or kind of learning under my belt. And it was amazing to see that actually the skills that I was learning in the course could be applied in my role. So I think actually my first takeaway for anyone who's interested in this is, regardless of what maybe conceptions you have about how you'd use this kind of these practical skills, you can apply it to almost any industry where there's data. And I think given, you know, how interconnected everything is, being able to tell a story, to scrape a website, to really understand or segment a market has been really beneficial to my career. So yeah, in a very short space of time, I was able to kind of use those skills, and it's becoming an increasing part of my day-to-day toolkit.
That's interesting, and congratulations on obtaining that role so quickly. I want to touch on the coaching aspect in a moment, but what you just mentioned, and I guess there's a question almost relating to this as well already, but there's many programs that offer you that somewhat the technical overview. You can learn Python almost anywhere these days, but we go much deeper into not only the technical, but the, I guess, business application. As you said, the storytelling behind data. It's one thing to source and wrangle data. It's another thing to have it presented for meaningful business impact, but also the human element skills and your personal reflective learning that's embedded within the program. If you can give the attendees an understanding of how those 4 learning elements came together in this case.
So is that kind of the career coaching element or the success manual discussions, Daniel? I can speak to both.
So we'll touch on the support in a moment. It's more around the learning content and how it's more than just the technical. As you said, it's about visualization and the business impact of being able to create those sorts of things, as well as your reflective capabilities to support your personal growth and things like that.
Yeah, you're right. I think actually, in addition to being able to understand the technical coding, I think the course was very good at being able to kind of break things down from a practical perspective. So any problem is really kind of made up of a series of questions and then kind of a series of answers, and how well you structure those. It doesn't matter how good your coding skills are if you've got a good framework. And actually that thought process I found really invaluable. So even if I'm not, I have much more to learn on Python and R, but I think the fact that I have an approach, a toolkit, and a way of structuring my problems I found really useful. And that's at the outset kind of defining the problem, really understanding what it is we're focusing on, the extent to which the data can help that, and the extent to which you can form a story on the back of it, I think is a really useful kind of framework. And I think that was really embedded into the course from module 1 to 3, and even the employer project, where we had kind of less structure. I think having that toolkit in the back of our mind was quite useful. So,
yeah, very much so. We will get to the employer project as well, and I am very keen to get to the questions from the audience as promptly as possible. I've only got a couple more. Before we touch on the support and the career coaching, how many hours a week did you commit to the program outside of your working hours, I guess?
Good question. So yeah, with a full-time career, I think it was difficult. I think then they suggest 15 to 20 hours a week. I think that is a fair estimate. I think there were definitely weeks where life would get in the way and I'd have to do fewer hours then and maybe make it up. I think if you can at the outset bed in 15 to 20 hours a week, it's really beneficial. It's quite difficult to try and pick up a language quickly on the fly. I think it's something you need to do constantly, and you'll always improve. I think it's really more of a kind of a marathon than a sprint, if I'm honest. So 15 to 20 hours is a fair estimate. There might be a bit more when you're closer towards the assignment. The employer project is a bit more variable, but my key piece of advice would be, if you can try and do the hours frequently rather than in big chunks, that's the best way to get the most out of this.
Thank you. And for the betterment of those in attendance, how is it structured? You've got a live session weekly, but then is it up to you as to when you do the rest of those hours?
Yeah, so good question. So for me, and I presume it's the same structure, there are 2 live lectures. I think they run through the same material every Thursday. So one was at Thursday morning or afternoon, I think 12 o'clock, and the other one was in the evening, so 7 p.m. Because I work full time, I would normally dial into the 7 p.m. That's recorded, so you have a very easy to use interface where you can replay any of the lectures. They come with kind of an online notebook as well, so you can kind of annotate and reference questions during those lectures, which is really useful. In addition to that, I think the biggest kind of benefit for me was the way the online kind of learning was structured. So you have access to a website. Each module is broken down into sub-modules with questions, practical examples, and then kind of assignment tips and learning. I think you can break that up as and when it's most convenient to you. So I think the term fourth review is asynchronous. So whenever you have the 15 to 20 hours in the week, that's most convenient to you, use that. So you're not kind of tied to a specific time or day. And that, I think, makes the whole process much easier. So I wake up quite early after kind of walking the dog and do a couple of hours, and then in the evening as well. So whenever you want, it's all online. You can do it at your convenience, and it's quite well structured in that respect.
I think there's great tips that you said earlier around developing the habit of getting some done regularly rather than obviously cramming. And was your success manager helpful with you developing that? And what was their support of you like during the program?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I remember 8 months ago when you mentioned the role of a success manager, I wasn't entirely clear how well I needed to interact with them. But actually having someone you would dock in with regularly outside of the general kind of Q&A you have about the course material, or separately about longer term career aspirations, those weekly catch-ins with my success manager was Luke, were really helpful, just to make sure kind of I had something to show. Also, when things were running behind, just to acknowledge that, I still had capacity to do it, setting aside some time and working together on a structure about when we would catch up. I did get an extension once, so but just because we had family commitments at the time, but having someone to kind of provide support, regular dialogue, update you on kind of what's ahead on the horizon, and also get an understanding of what's keeping me busy was really useful. And I think it puts a bit more onus on you to kind of have something prepared, because there are regular discussions in the diary.
Yeah, we find that really valuable, and the feedback we get is fantastic regarding that. It is about support, but it's also about holding you accountable to the investment that you're making in yourself as well, as you pointed out. That's great. So then there's another layer of support in terms of, I guess, both supporting your fellow learner in a peer-to-peer assessment that I'll come to in a moment, but let's touch on the coaching first. So we offer a flexible coaching process where you can have a monthly session, or you can have a couple just to get to know the coach and then back in them later when it might be the time to seek your intended employment outcome. Tell me about you've still got some you've only just finished, so you've still got some coaching sessions, but what were those initial ones like, and how did they assist you in your new role, obtaining your new role?
So I think the most rewarding thing from this program for me was just how manageable and bite-sized the pieces of advice were. So rather than thinking about, I need to get a job in this industry by this time, it was, have you thought about, firstly, what motivates you, what interests you? Can you kind of structure those? Then think about kind of where you're most engaged or least engaged. And then you start to think about where those skills might be most applicable. And actually that was quite nice. It kind of gave me a good foundation. Then about building your brand. So have you looked at your LinkedIn profile? Does it say what you want to say? I think this is an online course, and it was remarkable how little attention I paid to LinkedIn and how useful that is as a marketing tool for yourself. So building my profile on that, thinking about how I sell myself, who I'd like to sell myself to, and how I reach out to people, and that was really helpful. And I did actually manage to speak to kind of colleagues or people who worked in industries that I was first interested in, but actually through those conversations realized maybe it wasn't for me. And it's quite easy to get, I think, distracted by kind of pipe dreams sometimes without having the opportunity to speak to them. So those first few sessions were really good at setting the foundation. Honestly, the only reason I wasn't able to pursue all of them is because I was able to get a job halfway through. And I think if it weren't for the fact I started a new career in February, it probably would have gone through all 9 coaching sessions really to help flesh out my career. And I think the reason I joined the course in the first place was I think one of your previous cohorts had been given a role at Spotify, starting from a completely different industry. And testament, I think, to the success and the skills and the approach that I think that course really offers.
Fantastic. Thank you. Great to see the questions coming through thick and fast. So we're going to get to them as quickly as I can. I think the only other question I'll pose, just to paint the picture for everyone, is as you go through your modules within the course, there's no exams. How are you assessed? And tell me about the peer assessment element.
Sure. So for, I think, the first 3 modules, actually all 3 modules are broken up into kind of 2 parts. The first few weeks, every other week, you have an assignment, which accounts for, I think, between 3 to 5%. And that is a peer review, as Daniel referred to. And effectively, you will try and apply one of the skills that you've learned in one of the weeks to a specific problem. You'll then share that with, I think it was anonymous actually, an anonymous student who would then go through and kind of provide commentary. What's most useful about that is you get to see someone else's thought process and insights, and that in itself is a bit of learning. Actually, I think it's just the participation that's graded. So even if you're both horribly wrong, you both get the opportunity to speak to one another and understand actually what the correct approach is. Those are then reviewed or discussed in your weekly sessions. And then the second part, which is the bigger component, is the kind of assignment. So that will make up the bulk of your grade. And there it's an opportunity to present a report or kind of demonstrate your coding skills or your storytelling technique. I think in the first, so how do you use Tableau or infographics to make your point. And that, I think, is graded by the LSE course conveners.
Lastly, from me, the industry project aspect. Forgive me, I should have asked you earlier, was yours under a non-disclosure agreement?
No, it wasn't. So I can talk about mine.
Wonderful. What was your project that you worked on?
So quite close to my heart. It was about cycling in London. So the extent to which the Mayor for London could increase cycling engagement. The Transport for London have a really interesting website that captures everything in terms of the number of cycling lanes, parking points, users. I never knew what an API was before. By the end of the course, I was scraping data, being able to make sense of it, share it with my colleagues in a manner that they could also replicate. So the project itself was to really understand what cycling engagement in London was by borough, whether we can form any recommendations about particular interventions that might improve the uptake, and how it varied by demographic. But it was quite open-ended, so it's very much your approach. So how do you break up this very large problem and make it into something that makes sense, that gives the client an opportunity to kind of take away those recommendations, and also gives you the opportunity to really kind of utilize your skills. It was compared to, so the first 3 modules are very well structured. You kind of know how you need to answer things, and there's a really good, useful framework. The employer project was effectively a free-for-all. So I think a really good opportunity to test those immediately with a cohort. A bit more daunting, but actually coming through the other end, it was quite rewarding. And
then receiving feedback from the industry partners.
Sorry, right, yeah. So we did get to dock in with the ThoughtWorks, I think, were the sponsor, who have a fantastic kind of data science kind of program, but they would speak to us, I think, 3 opportunities. One at the outset to understand what our approach was. Then we had a kind of mock presentation where we kind of ran them through our approach, our key findings. And then a third one, which was probably the most rewarding, the final presentation where we've taken into account all of their feedback. And as a team, you kind of really see that progress from presentation 1 to presentation 3.
Brilliant. I do have some more, but I'll come to them later. I think it's more important now we focus on some of the questions from the audience. And please, if you do have any, just a reminder, pop them in the Q&A function. You can vote for your favourite question as well, should you wish me to get to that sooner. But I will start at the top. And someone's asked here, if I work as an economist, should I be looking at more econometric-focused courses than a general data analytics course? I think that's right up your alley, that question.
Yeah, no, that's a completely fair question. So it really depends what you want to do. So the econometric roles are, in theory, kind of the best of both. They utilize your individual skill set. I think they're a bit more narrow, though. So an interesting background from my perspective, I was kind of interested in the econometrician role. Spotify, for example, only have 6, I think, economists globally, but they've got hundreds, if not thousands, of data analysts. So you could use the econometric route. It really narrows down your focus. I think actually it's really what motivates you. So I kind of liked the option to be fairly flexible. I wanted to have a toolkit that gave me the opportunities to utilize data manipulation if and when I wanted, but I didn't always want to kind of be pigeonholed. So I think the econometric roles are interesting. There are fewer of them. So it really depends if you're willing to kind of carve in your focus, or instead maybe kind of open up to slightly different industries or different opportunities, and that should give you a bit more to pick from. Hopefully that answers your question.
It's a good one. And it made me think about positioning yourself with either the skill sets obtained, the tools used, but also the coaching methodology to set yourself apart from people that may be competing for those roles as well. It's ever changing. The curriculum is completely up to date. The world changes very, very quickly, and we have to ensure that industry advise us on changes and what they'd like to see in the course on a regular basis. So it would be a matter of looking at ways in which to combine that for the benefit as well. Someone's got no idea of coding. Can they take the course?
I was exactly the same. I mean, I would watch other people speak about R or Python, and I would glaze over, like absolutely no engagement. I think it's perfect. As long as you've got an interest in it and you're willing to be able to tell a story, all it is a way of kind of scraping the data and managing it in a way that helps you build that story. It is a language, so with any language, there will be kind of elements that are, I don't know, beyond our grammar or intuition at first, but it's something you can constantly build on. So highly recommend it if it's something you're interested in.
Yeah, and for the audience's benefit, we have on average around 15-20% career starters. We have the majority, though, that are almost 40% of each career changes, people seeking to change into a data-focused role, sometimes with little to no experience as well. And then the other 40% are career advances, people that are maybe aligned with data or in a data role already, but looking to take the next step of their careers. This is a really interesting question. Someone that studied at LSE previously said one of their favourite parts of the experience was how the course helped them to think about the models we were analysing and building, and not just focusing on equipping us with the technical skills. To what extent will this course strengthen the way we think about data analytics? Great question.
That for me? Sorry. It massively, actually. I think it doesn't just teach you about coding. It tells you how you structure a problem and then what the limitations are about the toolkit that you choose to use. So I think it is a very rounded course. I think that's probably a reflection of kind of LSE's teaching principles in general. But I did find it wasn't a case of just kind of committing to memory a certain bunch of syntax. It was very much about more broadly thinking about how I would structure a problem, what might be useful, and then thinking about what techniques I might be able to apply to that. So I think it was quite rounded.
Great answer. And it's a great question too. We can go through a process of digesting content, demonstrating competence via an examination process and leaving that to one side, or we can go through a process of thinking more deeply about that, using the academic underpinnings and philosophies that a university such as LSE is famous for, but then structuring that in the application of learning towards industry, which is the biggest benefit of the program. Next one. I've touched on this already. Would this course be a good stepping stone for a change of career role? Yes. As I said, 40% of our learners are career changes, and the success stories inspire us regularly. We internally, and you'll see on our LinkedIn and other social media platforms that we highlight them on a regular basis. It's what it's all about for us. So absolutely, it's a great stepping stone to change careers and into a career that is in such high demand. We know that throughout the digital economy, the use of data, but also the effective presentation of data, as Hussein's mentioned, for business impact is critical to almost every industry at the moment as well. Is Power BI one of the tools we will learn about in this program? No, it's not so much. We do partner with Tableau in that regard. Hussein, anything to add there?
No, you're right. Tableau was the software of choice. I've not experienced Power BI, but I think actually being able to experience Tableau was really useful. A really handy way of kind of developing your infographics quickly, easily. I think the mapping features in Tableau as well were really cool. Something that I was able to kind of demonstrate in my current role.
Excellent. I'm a qualified accountant and did banking and consultancy, so I'm unsure if this course of data science, or in this case analytics, is going to be future-proof in the face of AI. Any thoughts? I'm happy to tackle that, or you can, Hussein. But I
mean, I was having this conversation actually the other day with a friend. I think it is remarkable. ChatGPT, I think, became a bit more prominent to the second half of my course. But I found actually it was just a really useful way of sense checking, kind of coding. I think having a broader understanding of how coding can be used, how Python or R can be used in itself is really valuable. And that's what the course teaches you. It's true, you can kind of actually get the syntax a bit quicker if you type it into AI programs. But actually, I think it's more about how you use them for your own benefit that keeps at least this field alive for a few more years. Who's to say what will happen in 5 to 10 years? But I think at the moment, just having a grounding in data manipulation and data analytics is a massive stepping stone. Being able to kind of use or harness ChatGPT or any other AI program, I think just enforces that. It doesn't kind of dismiss it.
Exactly. Great answer, actually. And always at the forefront of our considerations is industry's requirements around the content being relevant and how to integrate these sorts of things, which we certainly are in the process of doing. Roughly what level of data analytics expertise will we get at the end of the course? Beginner, intermediate, or expert?
So I don't think it would be beginner. I think I wouldn't class myself as an expert. I think you always need to be kind of you need to be doing it for several years to be an expert, but I think you can get by demonstrating these skills independently. I think you'll have enough understanding to kind of put forward a solution, a problem, or kind of volunteer to demonstrate these skills comfortably. So maybe that's closer to intermediate. I think with anything you can always improve, but I definitely wouldn't say it's beginner, and it's more than you probably would have expected when you began the program.
Yep. And does the course cover more advanced or innovative data science techniques or areas?
I'm not sure. When you say innovative, I mean, we were scraping data. I used one of the Twitter APIs, and I was able to kind of understand what the most recent tweets are. Does that, or are you talking about kind of machine learning?
Yeah, I guess it's that predictive element of machine learning as well.
There is some in module 3 kind of discussion of predictive learning. It's not the majority of the course. I think it goes through different stages of data analysis. And I think forecasting is one of them, but it probably isn't a huge aspect of the overall program.
Great question, all the same. I'm not sure about this one. I'd like to know more about some of the solutions data scientists can solve, or I guess in your case, it's a fair question. So have you got practical examples of some of the challenges solved through the effective sourcing, wrangling and presentation of data?
Yeah, so I think everywhere you look. So I think one of the first things, there's an online, what's also really helpful is that there's an online community of students. And one of the first questions is, where can I use data science? And everywhere you look, really. I think the Netflix review ranking is based on data science. It's scraping kind of different understanding of who watches what, when, what their average profile is, and it uses that to kind of make targeted recommendations. Spotify's playlist is another one, really good one I keep going back to. I think anywhere you look where there's a big market where data is captured, where data scientists can be involved, it's really about kind of scraping all of that and making some sensible story.
You're right, it is, and sometimes it's unseen but highly impactful. I'll give one more human element example, I guess, and I've said this before, but it is so inspiring for us to see one of our first learners go through the program and work in supply chain logistics for the Red Cross. Now, he developed a program where he would review and identify trends in conflict zones within Africa, and then is able to use that model in emerging conflicts so that the Red Cross can actually predict where they will need medical supplies ahead of time, which, number one, saves lives by having the equipment and supplies there when needed, but number two, stopped them putting their own team members in harm's way of trying to get supplies through during conflict. That's life-changing and life-saving effective use of data to be able to somewhat model what a conflict may look like ahead of time and be proactive rather than reactive. It's a game changer. That's a powerful example, I find, and I love it. So there's no end to the problems that can be solved through the effective use of data is the short answer. Coco said, I'm an entrepreneur and previous experience as a credit MIS analyst in the corporate banking unit of a commercial bank. I want to use this course to launch a career into data analytics profession. How will this program help me in this regard? I'm happy to answer that one, or Hussein, have you got anything?
I'll follow you, Daniel.
Yeah, I think, Coco, it's a great question, and you will be set apart through the practical nature of the program, the academic underpinnings that LSE bring to this, but also the industry involvement in the curriculum design and also that industry project at the end. So having a portfolio of skills to be able to demonstrate, but also stories to be able to tell in an interview, aside from one's assessment opportunities such as an exam, I find, as I mentioned earlier, that powerful demonstration of your value after going through the program, and I guess more deeply learning not only the technical aspects of data analytics, but the employability skills through the coaching, that human element skills that and the personal reflective growth that certainly employers value these days, the ability to collaborate, for example, through those organizational type skills that are embedded as well. And that project is a great example of that. So you will really be able to develop a suite of tools and not only technical skills to be able to set yourself apart and to look at that career change for sure. And I guess also with your previous experience, leveraging some of that in combination with the new skills obtained.
I think the only thing to add to that is you can build an online portfolio. So as Daniel mentioned, your kind of academic credentials these days hold less weight, but being able to see what you've done and demonstrate that with a portfolio that you build based on the assignments you do is a really strong way to kind of distinguish yourself.
Wonderful. You're exactly right. Ali's mentioned, as a career accelerator, what tangible career benefits has the course contributed to your program progression, such as job role advancement, salary increase, etc.? Thank you. Good question, Ali.
So tangible career benefits. Well, I've got a wider toolkit of kind of things I can apply in my day role. I think that is a huge benefit. I think that in itself helps you have honest conversations about what you contribute, and that will kind of lead to salary increases. I think part of the reason I got my new role was the fact that I enrolled on this course, and it was part of my interview discussion at the end. So it was definitely something they took note of. So I think, yeah, all of the above, really. I think the ability to apply some very practical skills, the ability to kind of do that in a structured manner. So it's not just the skill set, it's the mindset. And then to demonstrate that work, as I mentioned, the online portfolio, they should also help your kind of ongoing discussions about where you are and how much you earn.
And there's been many, many examples of career advances. I think also you touched on it, saying the employer recognition that the brand of LSE has as well is one of the highest in the world. Employers recognise that graduates from LSE programs have those underpinnings that are required, and this obviously couples it more deeply with the industry element and the practical nature. So a great way, Ali, to apply with confidence to roles that will progress your career. We've got one here. Thank you, Ali. We've got one here with the salary range expected in a data analyst role. We don't want to know, or aren't necessarily asking your specific salary, Hussein, but in your experience, and I guess it's different for different levels of experience, but do you have any insights on that?
I think there's some on the online marketing. I think typically what I've understood is data analytical roles can be sort of around 70k in the UK, from what I understand. I think depending on the sector, that can be quite varied. I know the tech sectors pay sort of six figures upwards. I think, again, it's about not just the starting salary, it's the career progression. I think there are quite significant areas to advance in data science roles and data analytical roles that don't seem to be as prevalent in some other fields. So I think that's the other thing you probably need to take into account, not just where you begin, but where you might likely end.
That's a great point. It's not just for the next role, it's for the term benefits and career progression. And I guess that's a way to calculate your return on investment as well. If you're looking at £8,000 thereabouts for a program and do obtain a career outcome, as almost all students do, then what's the investment per year versus the salary increase per year? It's quite an easy way to work out your return on investment in that way. I'm going to ask you, there is one more question from the audience, and we've got a couple of minutes on questions if anyone wants to ask a last one or two, before we let Hussein get back to his busy day and his dog Rocky as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. How is he? Is he a good study companion?
He is. He'd normally sit behind me on this chair, so I'd normally be squeezed off, but he's been quite a good distraction.
Brilliant. Hussein, what's the difference between a data scientist and a data analyst?
My understanding is the analyst looks at kind of past data to make sense of what's happened and how best to kind of make inferences on the back of that, whereas the scientist might be a bit more forward-looking and forecasting. I presume, given the nature of the course, this is mostly backwards-looking, but that's not to say the two don't overlap to an extent some way through.
Great answer. I just want to touch on, if it's okay, your decision-making process and how you found this as the best option for you. Obviously saw in our marketing at some on a platform the program that piqued your interest first, and then went on a journey of information discovery. What we've recommended to everyone today is to book a time to speak with their enrolment advisor. Can I ask you, what was that discussion like? Were they hard selling, or were they asking questions? What was that in terms of influencing your decision?
So I guess the two things that influenced my decision. One is you can find online courses to teach you these skills already, and they're probably free, but they don't come with the structure. And often I did enroll in a few online free ones, but then with work and life, you kind of put them to one side and it doesn't materialize. And I was quite keen to see something from start to finish. and this program seemed to offer that structure. It was kind of in conjunction with wider career aspirations and ambitions, and having an opportunity to speak to a coaching advisor, I thought was quite useful. And then the conversation itself actually was much more about what motivates me, really. Where do I want to be? What kind of things am I interested in? I got some insights into kind of who made up the course. So people, it wasn't just kind of people who finished academia quite recently, people at my kind of stage in their career where they'd had significant amount of experience but were looking to maybe explore other avenues. So not hard selling at all, actually. I think it was very much an open discussion and something that I think we found mutually beneficial rather than being kind of shoved down my throat, for want of a better phrase. So yeah, I think throughout the course, it's very much you will get what you invest in it. So it doesn't matter kind of which direction you're heading in and how you choose to apply these skills. It's really up to you. You've got support from every direction.
Brilliant, thank you. And I guess, what are you doing with your free time now that you've finished?
It's a bit surreal, to be honest. It's quite nice. 15 to 20 hours to take up most, if not all, of your free time. We are expecting a baby in October, so I'm trying to prepare for that.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, to be honest, actually, the course is a welcome distraction. Now I need to kind of grapple with real life, but yeah.
Oh, enjoy every moment of it.
Thank you.
It's the greatest thing. Congratulations to you and your partner, and to Rocky, who's got a bit of adjustment to go through as well, I guess.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I think he's used to 100% of my attention, so that'd be good to see.
Often their best companions after 12 months of age as well. And I guess the last question someone's posted is around the time to study. We've answered that earlier, but were there any other tips on how to incorporate it into your life? I mean, aside from the developing the habit, you know, sometimes do you have to say no to commencing a Netflix series, for example, knowing that you've got a pressing deadline ahead? What are the sacrifices?
I think someone told me it takes 3 weeks to build a routine. So just challenge yourself to kind of put in a couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours every day, and you start to become okay with that. You're right. There were moments, I think, in the evenings where I was quite happy to sit on the couch and just watch whatever useless Netflix show my wife has chosen. But I think after a while, you begin to see kind of how much you learn, how quickly, and how kind of rewarding that is given the investment you put in. It's fairly easy to kind of build in that mindset and routine, but just try and do it early is my kind of suggestion.
And a good tip that I heard previously was, and I've used this myself, it's sitting down to make a start, especially when you don't feel like it. It could be a Friday night, there could be sport on the TV or whatever, but if you sit in front of that computer and you make a start, you might do 5 minutes, you might do 30 minutes, and then say no. But you've made some form of progress. And once you get on a roll, you actually embed yourself in it and get it done. Rather than go to bed that night and think, I should have. Even though I didn't do much, I'm satisfied with the decision I made to actually get something done or one thing out of the way. And I could rest easy now, I guess. Just checking on the time, I think we'll come to the closing questions that we have for your good self. And then I'll obviously like to round it off with a thank you. But what are your 2 or 3 top tips for people in the audience considering embarking on the Career Accelerator for themselves and their futures?
2 or 3 top tips. So one, I think, be comfortable with the idea that you do have to commit a fair amount of time to kind of this course, but see it as a worthy investment. So having come through the journey, and it goes incredibly quickly. It's surreal to be sitting on this side right now telling you about starting when I was in your position less than a year ago. So I think as long as you kind of commit to that and you're willing to make that investment, time included, you're on a good path. I think don't necessarily narrow yourself down to a single industry. It's remarkable how many different industries you can apply this skill set to. So I think throwing yourself into the coaching and the success manager and all the other kind of really valuable kind of non-coding and data analytical support you get is really beneficial. And then finally, make use of the community. You get an online kind of yellow dig, I think it's called, community, just to vent to, and actually knowing other people are similarly struggling or actually doing quite well, and hearing how they've applied their skill set is quite nice. So I think I'm naturally an introvert, but seeing those discussions and partaking in them was actually quite helpful to get me through.
It's a great part of the program is the peer-to-peer networking, even though online. We do create that and work hard at creating that sense of community. Before I round it off, I do want to shout out to someone in the audience. I know that there's an attendee who is commencing. His name is Joel. I won't go further than that other than to say I know Joel's been on quite a journey to get into the Career Accelerator, and even went away and did some study to actually make the most of this opportunity once accepted, and he has been now. So we're really excited to be welcoming Joel in the upcoming presentation. Well done, Joel. Lastly, thank you, Hussein. It has been inspiring to witness your progression throughout the program, and we look forward to continuing to witness your progress, your career progression, but also your progression as a father as well, coming up in October. It's a delight, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Daniel. Pleasure, and good luck to all who to begin the course hopefully soon.
Exactly. Lastly, please click on that link in the chat function to download the brochure if you haven't got that already. Please also click the link to book a time to meet with your enrolment advisor. They are going to be pivotal in assisting answer even more questions than we've had the opportunity of answering tonight, and will take a great deal of care and empathy in your decision. They will ask you questions around your motivation to study and aligning the value. And if it's not there, they'll be honest with you and let you know as well. They'll also guide you through the application process. They'll set up, if required, any payment plans that make it even easier and more accessible for you. So the best thing that you can do, aside from committing the time that you have today to attend this for your benefit, to learn more about what the program looks like and how it may be of benefit to you, is to make that next decision around acting on that and booking a time with your enrolment advisor. From myself, it's been an absolute pleasure to see all of the interaction with your valued questions. There were some brilliant questions, and even more so, it was amazing to hear Hussein's story of learning and progression, and that's what it's all about for us. So hopefully we can witness your progress within the Career Accelerator as well. I thank you for your time. Well done on making a decision to attend, and this will be recorded for if anything you want to go back and look over it at any stage. It'll be published on YouTube in the next 24 to 48 hours or so. That's it from me. Thank you ever so kindly. I wish you well. I wish you all the best in your futures, and good on you for making a wise decision to invest in yourself through the Career Accelerator. Have a great day.